Dre all day.
You're now tuned in to the show where you learn the discipline to show up day after day to do the work, the confidence to put yourself out there boldly and authentically, and the mental toughness to continue showing up, doing the work, putting yourself out there even when the success you have expected to achieve has yet to be achieved. And on top of all this, you get a huge dose of personal initiative. That's the go-getter energy that moves anyone out there, anyone, to go and make things happen instead of waiting for things to happen. We put all this together in one bundle, one package, one mindset, one method, one philosophy, one show. This masterclass right here that is called Work on Your Game. My name is Dre Baldwin, also known as Dre All Day. Welcome to the show. Congratulate yourself on being here in this masterclass. Not everybody made that wise decision that you made to be here, so you should be really happy that you made the decision other people didn't make, because today's topic is when to take no for an answer. Yes, you heard me correctly. When to take no for an answer. Now, I touched on this subject in masterclass number 1297, where I talked about mastering your anti-people skills, the things that you do that are actually pushing people away from you, but you keep doing them, not even realizing what exactly you're doing. How to master those anti-people skills. And one of those anti-skills that some people have that don't even realize is hurting them is a person's inability to know when you are in the wrong place, or you're doing something at the wrong time, or you're just doing the wrong thing, period. And sometimes it's a combination of those. Wrong place, wrong time, wrong thing. And sometimes just the wrong person, whether that be you or the other individual that you're dealing with. Or sometimes people make the mistake of not knowing when they should keep trying to achieve in a certain space, a certain area, or at a certain task in life, versus when they are staring at a dead end. How do you know whether you should keep going and keep trying at something, continue to persist, versus when you're just in the wrong place and nothing's going to happen here, so you need to just go find something else to do? How do you know which is which? How do you know when to accept that no and move on, go somewhere else, versus, you know what, I'm not going to accept that no, is this going to make me double down and try harder? You must know, you must be able to discern, as I talked about in the masterclass on discernment. You got to know when it's time to keep going and when it's time to walk away. I talked about discernment in masterclass number 1431. If you haven't listened to that yet, make sure you go check it and take notes on it so you don't remember everything because you're not going to remember everything that I said. I'll tell you a story. A few days ago, from when I'm recording this, I had a conversation with one of the worst salespeople that I've ever talked to in my life, especially since I've been in business. I'm an entrepreneur, if you didn't know, and this guy was a representative of a company that was selling a service that helps entrepreneurs like me. And I was interested in the service that they were offering, so I went through their process and ended up on the phone with this salesperson. And this was not like a 5-minute conversation. We were on the phone for about an hour plus, just talking about what I'm doing in my business, what I was looking to do, what they're doing, what they offer, how they do it, et cetera, et cetera. So we're having this conversation, right? And this person, eventually we get to the point where he's pitching me about their offering, what it is they do, how it's going to help me, this and that. And I've talked to a whole bunch of people who do this. So they do basically what they call like an application type of funnel. So you fill in your information, then they schedule a phone call with you. You get on the phone call with one of the salespeople. They walk you through this whole thing. They ask you a bunch of questions, give you a bunch of information, and then eventually at the end they tell you, hey, here's exactly what our product is. Here's exactly what it's going to do. Here's how it's going to help you based on the information you've given us. Here's how much it costs. Let's get you started. That's basically the program that everybody follows. The good people follow it. The terrible people follow it. The only real the variables are who's the salesperson who's making the offer, what is actually being offered, and who's the prospect who's taking the call. Those are the three variables. So, as I said, I've been on a bunch of these calls, a bunch of different salespeople, a bunch of different offers. This guy was terrible simply because, first of all, he had very little by way of people skills. He did not know how to build rapport. He wasn't a good conversationalist. He made the whole thing it felt very forced. Just the conversation that he was having. He wasn't, like I said, he didn't feel like the type of person who I would have a conversation with for any other reason than the fact that I was on the phone at that particular moment talking about the product or service that he was offering. If I'm going to buy something from you, I want you to feel to me like the type of person who I would have a conversation with, even if I wasn't buying anything from you. Like the type of person that have some type of rapport with, even if we don't have a lot of things in common, just some type of rapport. Have some friendliness to you, some chumminess. He didn't have any of that. He didn't have people skills. It's not because he was trying to be an asshole. It was just the type of person he was. Just how his personality was. Very, very little people skills. No animation in his voice, anything. And finally, he gets to the point where he tells me what their product is. He tells me how much the product costs. And the way that he said it was so, I wish I had the whole thing on tape. It was more funny than it was anything else. And I eventually got to the point, after he told me the price, I told him, you know what, I'm not going to do it today. Give me 48 hours. I'm going to consider what you offer me, and I'll tell you yes or no. Get back in touch with me in 48 hours, and I'll tell you yes or no. And the way that I believe he was trained this way, I think this is just the way that their company decided to do it. They said, well, look, we can get back in touch with you in 48 hours, but in order for us to get back in touch, you need to put down a monetary deposit. And after 48 hours, if you decide that you don't want to buy the product, then we'll just refund you that deposit that you put down. But the only way you can not make a final decision on this call is to put down a monetary deposit. I've never heard of anyone doing that. That is a ridiculous way to sell products. That all that's basically going to do is antagonize people. The only people, nobody's going to put down that deposit and then later on buy the product. Nobody's going to do that. I don't think. Maybe they have some people who have done it, but I think that's a really bad way to do business. A very high pressure sales type of thing. Is a very used car salesman-y type of way of selling things. So I can't blame the salesperson for that. I blame the company, because obviously he didn't just come up with that out of nowhere. He is following a script that he was trained to follow. But anyway, it was just a really bad conversation. Eventually, he gets to the point where I'd say to him, I clarify exactly what he was saying. I said, are you telling me that I got to put down a deposit in order to even think about buying your product? And if I decide not to, then y'all give me the money back. But if I decide to buy it, then you just put that towards the final price of the product. He said, yeah. And the way he said it, again, there was no energy. There was no life in his voice, the way that he was talking. That was just the way he talked the whole time I was talking to him. This is just his normal personality, I guess, or maybe he was having a bad week. Who knows? But I get to the point where I say to him, like, yo, I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to put down a deposit. Listen, I do want to think about it, and I will get back to you within 48 hours. I'll tell you a clear yes or a clear no. It'll be a very brief conversation, but I'm not putting down a deposit just to take a moment to consider your offer. And then this is what the guy does. Now, at this point, if any of you who's a salesperson, at any point in your life, someone says something like this to you, I don't care if you're selling something for money or you're just asking them something. They say, yo, give me X amount of time to consider what you're talking about, and I'm going to get back to you. Now, granted, do sometimes people say, give me some time to consider it and I'll get back to you, and then they don't get back to you, and then they don't call you back, and then you never hear from them again? Of course, this happens. People use it as an escape tactic because they don't want to say no to you directly. I don't have a problem saying no directly. He didn't know that, so he was probably thinking what I just explained. That sometimes people just disappear if you allow them to disappear. But here's the thing. If somebody's trying to get away from you and they're going to end up saying no anyway, nothing you do is going to turn that no into a yes. There's nothing he could have possibly said that was going to turn my temporary no into a yes. The problem that he had was that he thought, or at least, I don't know, maybe he's been trained to believe, he thought that if he kept pushing, that he would somehow turn my no into a yes. So all he did was continue. He started saying the same things over and over again. Well, I don't know why you won't make a decision right now. I don't know why you won't do this right now, because our product will clearly help you. It'll do this and this. And I said, dude, do you understand that I'm telling you right now, what I'm giving you right now is a version of a no. I'm giving you a soft no. And I told you it's going to be either a hard yes or a hard no within 48 hours. All you got to do is stop trying to push me to make a decision right now, because I'm not going to make one right now. And he just continued to push. And eventually I said to him, and this didn't take that long, I'm talking like 30 seconds later, because he kept repeating the same thing. I said to him, hey, I asked him a question. I said, do you understand that the more that you push me in this conversation, the less chance that I'm actually going to buy anything from you? Do you understand it? Do you understand that the more you push, the further and further away you're getting from your actual desired outcome? Do you understand that? I said to him. And he didn't answer yes or no. All he did was continue to push. And I finally said to him, all right, well, the answer is no. I'm not buying your product. And I'm not going to make a deposit right now. And then he said, well, we'll have to pull away our offer. We're no longer making our offer available to you. And I said, okay, great. And I said, well, thanks for your time. And he didn't even say goodbye. He just hung up. He just hung up on me. So I guess he was very frustrated, or I don't know. I don't know the guy, so I'm trying to make as few assumptions as possible here, as you can see. But this guy had very few people skills, He did not know how to sell. He did not know how to make a connection with another human being. He obviously knew how to follow a script. That script was not well written. So whoever those guys are, I know who they are. I could say their name. I'm not going to put them on blast here on my podcast. They're not here to defend themselves. But if I ever meet one of the principals from this company, and I know who they are, and I know where I might see them, I will let them know to their faces that this process absolutely is not working. And I bet by the time I finally come across them, I don't care if it's in 3 days or 2 years, they will have fixed this process because they'll see that this shit is not working. But anyway, the whole point of me telling you that is that this individual did not know how to take no for an answer. I was telling him no, and this is a time when you should take no. So in case you didn't read between the lines of what I'm talking about here today, and if you read the title, you probably understood this. There are times in life when you should accept no and walk away. So I know that you have heard people say, well, never take no for an answer, or this guy, look how successful he is. He never took no for an answer. He never accepted no. He knew how to persist. He knew how to push. Listen, I told you about persistence several times here on this show. In Masterclass 1435, what you avoid shall persist. Masterclass 743, how to lock in persistence for life. Number 460, how persistence overcomes a lack of talent. Number 123, how to be persistent. Masterclass number 16 from back in 2016, obscurity, uncertainty, and persistence, the 3 things that are keeping you from getting seen, heard, and known in life. I have preached to you about persistence many times here on this show. However, all of you must understand the difference between knowledge and wisdom. Knowledge is knowing a whole bunch of things. Wisdom is knowing which things you should apply of what you know in a given situation. In other words, there are some times in life where it makes sense to persist, and keep pushing until you get what you want. And there are other times in life where you should stop persisting, stop pushing, stop trying, and go the other direction because you're not going to get any closer to your outcome if you continue to persist. That's what today's masterclass is about. Okay? Now let's get into our points. Point number 1. Today's topic is when to take no for an answer. First thing I want you to understand is that taking no for an answer and understanding when to take no and how and why to take no for an answer is an art. It is not a science. Meaning that there is no black and white color by numbers, or if this person says this and they look like this and it's this day of the week and the wind is blowing this many miles per hour, that's when you should say no and that's when you should say yes. It doesn't work like that, ladies and gentlemen. I know that there are many one-dimensional thinking people out there in the world, not you, but many one-dimensional thinkers out there in the world who think that there's some type of formula. They want somebody to just tell them, all right, if this happens and this, then you do that. And if that happens, then do that. Life doesn't work like that. Business doesn't work like that. Relationships don't work like that. People don't work like that. Sports don't work like that. In basketball, players would say to me, they would see me doing a drill and they would say, well, Dre, what specific game situations would need to occur for me to use this exact move? And I would say to them, it doesn't work like that. First of all, in a live game, you won't have time to think about, oh yeah, this is the situation Dre says, so I should do this move. It doesn't work like that. And second of all, if you try to do things that way, you would find yourself, first of all, being very formulaic and kind of stiff and rigid in what you're doing. It wouldn't work. When situations and people change, which they oft do, you would not be able to adjust and keep up, and you would get left behind. All right, you would lose very quickly if you try to go through life with a color by numbers mindset. All right, if this happens, I'll do that. If that happens, do that. Doesn't work like that. It's not black and white when it makes sense to walk away versus when you should keep trying. It is a judgment call, which is why in Masterclass number 1431, I explained to you how to sharpen your skill of discernment, your skill of judgment. The key to seeing which one it is, keep going or walk away, is you must be mentally fluid. Mentally fluid. In Masterclass number 744, the subject was how to remain fluid and changeable in life. So the key to knowing when to walk away and when to stay there and keep fighting, go listen to Masterclass 744, how to remain fluid and changeable, so you know exactly how it's done. Do not marry yourself to only one way of achieving an outcome. If you're following a script, it's fine to follow a script. Scripts usually exist because they work. Usually they work. This company, these people I was talking to, that script did not work. Well, it worked for the people who buy. For the people who don't want to buy, or the people who want to think about it, or people who are kind of on the fence, that shit ain't working. So they're going to have to figure out something else for that. And again, if they're smart people, they'll probably figure that out pretty soon. The key is not marrying yourself to one way, being fluid enough to change and do things different ways. If you're following a script or you're following someone's protocol or process, you also got to learn when to step a little bit outside of the lines of the script and do what's necessary given the current situation. That requires a little bit of thinking, requires a little bit of intelligence, requires a little bit of wisdom. It's not just following everything black and white just because that's what's written on the sheet. And a lot of people fall into that mistakenly because they don't have that mental fluidity. Their mindset is set in, all right, I'm gonna do exactly what the directions say. But sometimes the directions are telling you to do something that doesn't make sense given the current situation, which is fluid and always changeable. Therefore, you need to be fluid and always changeable. Unless the situation is static and is exactly the same every time, you can't be static and exactly the same every time. That makes sense, right? We often falter in seeing things only one way. And if we can't get things to happen that one way, we either quit or we just keep trying to get things done that exact same way, which doesn't work. Like the salesperson I was talking to, he kept going over the same clothes over and over and over again, trying to close me on doing what he wanted me to do when I made it very clear to him that I wasn't going to do it the way that he wanted me to do it. But he kept doing it over and over again simply because mentally he was too rigid. He was not fluid mentally. And that was the downfall of his potential sale. In masterclass number 734, I told you about keeping your options flexible in life. Mentally, physically, and everything you do, keep your options, your opinions rather, flexible, not your options. Keep the way that you think, the way that you approach things, the way that you address things, keep it flexible because times change, people change, you change. Therefore, you should be making changes in the way that you operate along with that. To get better at this, you got to train your instincts. You got to get better at thinking and moving instinctively in life, not trying to follow a program or somebody's 3-step process in everything that you do. In my experience, and this is about instinct, actually, before I get to my experience part. Instinct, I told you in masterclasses number 1003, and 943. Both of those are about sharpening your instincts. So if you feel like your instincts are not as sharp as they could be, you feel like they could be a lot better, and I'm 99% sure they could be, refer to those two master classes, 1003 and 943. Both of those about sharpening and trusting your instincts. And I got another one coming very soon. And point number 2, today's topic, once again, is when to take no for an answer. And yes, there is a time to take no for an answer. In my experience, we're on point number 2 now. In my experience, females tend to take no for an answer too quickly, whereas men tend to not take no for an answer soon enough. Men, generally speaking, this is just in my experience as a general rule, men tend to not know when to take no and walk away. They try too hard for too long. And women tend to accept no way too easily and way too early. Sometimes they craft a no in their own minds before they even have received the no, and then they walk away without trying enough. I've seen women craft that no in their head and hear one and cancel themselves out before they've even actually heard one. They hear one in their own head. And I hear men, they will receive a loud and clear no, like this salesperson I was talking to. He was a man, if you didn't notice. They hear a loud and clear no, but they act like they didn't hear it. Ladies out there, ladies who are listening to this, have you ever encountered a male who was interested in you and just couldn't accept a no? They didn't know when to walk away soon enough. They heard no, but they acted like they didn't hear no. They heard it, but they didn't listen. They kept trying, even though they had already been told no. If any of you ever seen the movie Hitch, you may remember the early scene in the movie where Eva Mendes, who was the main female interest in the movie, became the main female interest in the movie of Will Smith, who was one of the other main characters. She was in a bar, and there was some guy who obviously he had obviously been studying pickup artists. He'd been a part of the pickup artist community, so he had these lines that he would use on women. So he walks up to Eva in the bar, and he's interested because she's a good-looking woman. And he starts using his pickup artist lines, and Eva obviously had heard the lines before, so she smiled at him and said, I've heard your lines before. She communicated to him that she knew exactly what he was saying, exactly what he was doing. Told him that she was not interested. She said those exact words, "I'm not interested." And then he kept going. He tried a different line, which was like the response whenever a woman says, "I'm not interested," say this. So again, she knew the lines, and she said to him, she chuckled and said, "Hey, when I say I'm not interested, that doesn't mean try harder." But then he kept trying. He kept trying harder and harder because he had these lines. He had this process in his mind that he had been trained to follow. He did not have the fluidity to understand that sometimes you got to go off script. And eventually Will Smith intervened in the conversation and shut this guy off, this pickup artist, this failing pickup artist, at least in that moment, from trying to continue to get at Eva Mendes. It didn't work. He didn't get her. He ended up walking away frustrated because his pickup lines just didn't work. But the point of me even giving you that is this: men usually are the ones who go too far with not knowing when to take no, not understanding. Or if somebody's ignoring you, it doesn't mean keep texting them. Or if someone is not want to buy your product, doesn't mean keep trying to figure out different ways to sell it to them. If someone is telling you they're not interested, that really means they're not interested. Go find somebody who is interested. Whereas ladies, on the other hand, will kind of set themselves up to be told no before the person even says no. Or they'll hear a no and not even try before they even make the attempt. Now, again, I'm not saying this applies to everyone. So men, I'm not saying all of you are pig-headed and stubborn and don't know when to accept no, but I am kind of saying that because I'm a man, so I can say that. Ladies, I'm not saying that all of you just hear no and cancel yourselves out and don't try hard enough all the time. But in my experience, I've seen a lot of women do this, and I've seen a lot of men do what I said about men. So it turns out, well, actually the thing is, rather, when a man turns out to be right, or a woman turns out to be right. So if a man turns out to be right by continuing to persist way past the point of comfort and they end up getting a positive outcome, all it does is reinforce this habit that is not going to serve them much in the long run. And women, when they tell themselves no early on and it ends up having been an actual no, that they didn't persist far enough on to even get to the no, it reinforces the belief that they already had. They say, I knew it. I knew they were going to say no, so I did a good job by cutting my losses and cutting bait early and getting away from them. And men say, I knew it. I knew if I just persisted, then this woman would eventually say yes to me and give me her number, so I'm just going to do that with every woman that I meet. But when we're wrong, when the woman is wrong about saying no too early, or the man is wrong about continuing to push when they should have just walked away, they don't take credit for that. So you take credit when the things go the way that you want them to go, but when they don't go the way that you don't want them to go, you don't take credit for that. In masterclass number 1211, I gave you a clear delineation between vision and delusion, because I get asked about this often, especially from athletes. They say, well, Dre, how do you know, being that you came from humble beginnings as an athlete, how can you tell when you're a person who has a vision that has not come to fruition yet and you should continue to persist, versus if you're a person who is completely delusional and the reason why you don't have any results is because you're going down the wrong path and you're the wrong person and this is a dead end? How do you know the difference between the two when you're at a point of nothing working? Is it a vision that's going to come to fruition, or is it a delusion that you should just cut bait and walk away from? Well, I explained to you in masterclass number 1211 that the way that you figure out which is when you get to the end of the story. Which is kind of like an answer but not an answer, because you don't know till you get to the end of the story whether you are a visionary or a delusional fool. Which means sometimes in life you got to stick with it and keep going. But you got to learn how to follow your instincts so you know whether you should keep even trying or it's time for you to just walk away. How do you figure that out? You got to learn how to trust your instincts. As I told you, 2 master classes, 1003 and 943, both tell you how to do that. So, all that being said, generally, ladies, you can afford to stick with things a little bit more. And men, you can afford to stop trying so hard when you've already been told no. All right, there are plenty of fish in the sea, as they say. Point number 3. Today's topic is when to take no for an answer. Sometimes you have the right approach, but you're going after the wrong outcome. Sometimes you should take no for an answer simply because you're doing the right things, but you're trying to do it to achieve the wrong outcome. So if you just change the outcome that you're after, you would get the result that you're after. George Jung was the main character in this movie called Blow. I believe he was played by Johnny Depp was the person who played him. And during the movie, George got arrested for selling a whole lot of marijuana. He was wholesaling marijuana, but while he was in jail, his cellmate introduced him to cocaine. His cellmate said, well, you got arrested for selling marijuana. The problem is not that you got caught. The problem is you're selling the wrong drug. Now, if you want to make money selling drugs, you might as well sell a drug that makes more money, turns more profit, and that was cocaine. This cellmate introduced George to cocaine, and George became the biggest cocaine dealer in all of the United States, at least at that time, according to the story. And his career took off. His drug dealing career took off from that point simply because he had a better product. He had a better outcome to go for, given his desires from that point. He wanted to make money selling drugs. The better, you might as well go for the bigger one. So he started selling cocaine, made himself a ton of money, and you can go watch the movie if you want to learn more about that. There's a rapper by the name of Mace. M-A$E. Some of you probably don't even know who Mace is. But Mace, he rapped in one of his early songs. He was signed to one of my virtual mentors, Puff Daddy, Sean Puffy Combs, who I did a virtual mentors episode on way back. I believe that was back in 2016, might have been in 2017. Masterclass number 195, Virtual Mentors Volume 1, Sean Puff Daddy Combs. So Mace rapped about how when he first started rapping, he was rapping about street life, and it was very violent and aggressive content that he was rapping about, but he wasn't drawing a lot of fans. He didn't have much of an audience. His career wasn't going anywhere, if you could even call it a career at that time. But when he met Puff Daddy, and Puff Daddy said to him, listen, we're not going to rap about that street stuff. We're going to put on these shiny suits. We're going to rap about money and girls and cars and houses and popping champagne and going to clubs and living a good life. We're going to rap about that. Mace said when he started doing that, he became world famous, and he made himself a whole lot of money. And now 25 years later, I'm mentioning his name on my masterclass simply because Mace went and made himself popular by just changing the outcome. He was still a rapper. He still wanted to make money. The only difference is, instead of rapping about being a thug in the streets and violence, he said, let me rap about pretty girls and cars and money and popping champagne. And he got a completely different outcome. So sometimes in life, you have the right grind. You're just going after the wrong outcome. 50 Cent, who I talked about also in the masterclass number, what number was 50 Cent? Number 316, Virtual Mentors number 3, Curtis 50 Cent Jackson. Now, Curtis took the traditional approach to getting into the music business, and he had some mild success. He had actually managed to get himself signed to a record label. He was about to put out his first album in the summer of the year 2000, and that's when he got shot. Now, most people never heard of 50 Cent until he got shot, but he was actually out and about to put out his first album before he got shot. Then he got shot, damn near died. Of course, he came back from that shooting. Everybody knows that story now. And then he took a completely different approach to getting his career going, because after 50 Cent got shot, nobody wanted to be associated with the violence around his name. People were wondering, like, all right, is this guy going to get shot again? Is he about to shoot somebody? He's riding around with a bulletproof vest. He's rapping about all this violence. So he didn't go the Mace route. He didn't put on a shiny suit. He said, I'm going to double down on this gangster rap. I'm going to double down on violent rap. I'm going to double down on talking about guns and thugs and drugs and all of that. I'm going to double down. I'm going to triple down on it. So instead of trying to get the traditional music deal and go the traditional route through the music industry as he had the first time around, because the second time he couldn't go that way because nobody wanted to go near this guy, 50 went a different approach. He took the guerrilla approach and started putting out what we now know as mixtapes, his own personal artist branded mixtapes. That's nobody had done that before. The only people doing mixtapes at that point were DJs. 50 was the first artist to do his own mixtape, took the guerrilla approach, and 20 years later, everybody knows 50 Cent's name, and I can mention him here. I don't have to explain to you who he is. Why? Because he just changed the desired outcome. The approach didn't change. He still wanted to be a rapper. He was still hustling. He was still working hard at rap. The difference is he just decided to go about it a different way, get a different outcome, and even with the same hustle, he was able to create a completely different result. So sometimes in life, taking no for an answer doesn't mean giving up on the outcome. It means, actually, let me backtrack. Sometimes in life, taking no for an answer doesn't mean that you stop doing the things that you're doing. It just means instead of aiming towards the left, you start aiming towards the right. Instead of aiming over here, you aim over there. And you get a completely different outcome simply because you changed your aim. But you didn't change guns, you didn't change bullets, you just changed what you were aiming at. Point number 4. Today's topic is when to take no for an answer. Sometimes, ladies and gentlemen, you have the right outcome, but the wrong approach. Now, point number 3, I said sometimes you got the right approach, but the wrong outcome. Now I'm telling you the opposite of that. You have the right outcome, but the wrong approach. So you just got to learn how to alter your approach to anything you're going after. Like that salesperson I was talking to, had he altered his approach and said, you know what, Dre, I completely understand that. You know, we're asking you for a big investment. You know, you might have just heard of us a few days ago. Why don't you take 48 hours to think about this? Let me send you an email with 4 links. They are testimonials of people who've already bought from us in the past. So you can take a look at those. You can hear some people who are in similar industries to what you're doing. So you can hear what results they've gotten with working with us. And what I'll do is follow up with you in 48 hours, see where your head is at mentally, see where you're at. And if you want to go with us, great. If you don't want to go with us, I completely understand. You got plenty of options out there. So let's just do that. And we could have ended the call amicably that way, and I might end up buying the product from him. But he didn't do that. What did he do? He didn't change his approach. He kept using the exact same approach over and over again. He had the outcome. The outcome was right. He wanted to sell me his product. I'm not mad at him for trying to sell me a product. I'm the one who got on the phone with him. I didn't have to get on the call. So he had the right outcome in mind, but he had the wrong approach. And when he realized that his approach was wrong, he didn't have any other tools to go to. He had no other material. So when his plan A material did not work, he did not have plan B material, and that's why he failed, because he didn't know what the hell he was doing. You have to learn how to alter your approaches in life, ladies and gentlemen. That means not changing the desired result, but just changing the way you go about achieving it. There's some basketball players out there who want to play in the NBA and it's not working, so they end up becoming, let's say, a YouTuber or a trick shot specialist, and that gets them attention and fans and money all the same. Sometimes basketball player, it's not even that they want to play in the NBA, they just want attention. They want to be able to play basketball for a living. They want to have fans, and they want to make money. So you could do that through the NBA. You can also do it through YouTube these days. You could do it through Instagram. So ask someone if they'll do something or they'll allow something. Hey, would you buy this product, or would you allow us to charge you a deposit fee in order to buy this, in order to think about buying this product? And they say no. What do? You have a certain outcome. You ask for that outcome, and the person gives you a flat no. Or they, as we say in our lingo, they curve you. So curving someone is like blowing them off, but doing it in like a nice way. So they curve you. So they didn't say no, but they damn sure didn't say yes either. What do? Do you have any other tools? Do you have any other bullets in your chamber, in the chamber? When I got my first job that I had out of college, actually I didn't even have the job, but I went to a 2-day shadowing program with this guy who was selling landline phone service, believe it or not. This is after college. And the guy, one thing that he told me that I remember was whenever you're in a sales conversation, it's like you have a gun with like 8 bullets in the chamber. So every time you face some kind of objection or complaint from the customer, you can fire one of those bullets to knock down the objection or the complaint from the customer. You just got to be careful, Dre, he explained to me. Don't shoot all 8 of your bullets all at the same time. You got to make sure you're saving bullets so that every time they come with an objection, you got something to knock it down with, but you also don't want to keep saying the same thing over and over again, because that's not going to work. You get redundant and you're not going to get the outcome that you want. So you got to have multiple tools in your bag. You got to have different ways of getting things done. Right? When the whole coronavirus thing hit the United States, as I'm recording this, we're in the midst of it, and who knows, it might still be going on by the time you hear this. They start closing gyms. Now you can't go to the gym. Now I like to go to the gym. I go to the gym every day. I work out every day. So now they told us the gyms are closed in the neighborhood. The gym in my building is closed. So I can't even work at the gym in my building. What are you going to do? There are a lot of people out there who have no idea what to do. They can't go to the gym and they can't use the equipment in the gym. They don't know how to work out without equipment. So all you out there who are personal trainers or fitness experts, this is your chance to eat. This is your chance to show people, all right, you can't get to the gym, but you want to work on your legs? All right, do this. You want to work on your ass? Do this. You want to work on your stomach? Do this. You want to work on your cardio? Do this. This is your chance to show people, hey, here are the other ways. Here are the other bullets in the chamber. If you can't go to the gym, here are the other ways you can still achieve your outcome. Ask someone when you find out that you can't do something the way you want to do it, do you have an alternate approach? One of the alternate approaches in life that will help you very easily, or one way you can figure out alternate approaches, is by asking yourself a question that starts with one 3-letter word. Here's the word how, H-O-W. How, Dre, since you don't want to purchase this today, how can we make this work? How can I make this as easy and amicable for you? How can I make it as comfortable as possible for you to make a decision and not feel like you're being pressured by us to purchase our offer? How can we make this work? No, you won't do it that way. All right, how can we do it? How can we do it in a way that would make sense for everybody? What would it take to make this work out? What would make it make sense for you, since you say it doesn't make sense for you right now? What can we do to allow you to believe? What can we do for you to believe that you're making the best possible decision for yourself, your family, and your business? See how all these questions are open-ended questions? Open-ended questions invite the other person that you're talking to into the conversation and really think about what you're saying, consider what you're saying, and keep open the door for you to actually get the outcome that you want. And this is something that a lot of people fail to do, and this is why a lot of people fail, period. Masterclass number 1436, I just told you about this. Keeping the power in your own hands. You do that by asking open-ended questions. Masterclass number 1436, I just told you that. Open-ended questions, open possibilities, keep you in the game, basically. Keep giving you a chance to actually win, even though somebody just told you no. You still can win when somebody tells you no. You just got to learn how to ask the right type of questions. Let's recap today's class, which is when to take no for an answer. And yes, there is a time to take no for an answer. I touched on this in masterclass number 1297, anti-people skills that a lot of people have. Obviously, as I told you this story about this terrible salesperson, he didn't know when to take no for an answer, and he didn't have any other alternatives to dealing with the no that I was clearly giving him. He kept pushing to the point that he completely lost the sale because he didn't know what the hell he was doing. So you need to know when to accept no. There are different forms of no that you're going to receive. You got to know how to build rapport, get along with people, and keep the loop open, even though they may have just told you that they don't want to do what you want them to do, or life is telling you it doesn't want to do what you want it to do. Point number one, this is an art and not a science, meaning it's not black and white. When to walk away versus when to keep going is a judgment call. That's why in masterclass number 1431, I explain to you how to sharpen your skills of discernment. The key to seeing which it is you got to be mentally fluid. Don't marry yourself to only one way of doing things. I told you in masterclass number 734, keep your options flexible. You get better at this, you got to train yourself to trust your instincts. I told you, masterclass 1003 and 943, they're both about instinct. Number two, in my experience, women tend to give up too easy, men tend to keep going too hard for too long. All right, so both sides, you got to learn how to push yourself a little bit in the opposite direction, maybe a little bit different from your nature, but if you're giving up too easily, then you're missing out on opportunities. And if you're trying too hard for too long, then that means you're staying in a place where you're not going to get a result no matter how hard you bang your head against that wall. So again, do not allow these situations to end up going the way that you want them to go to delude you into believing that you should keep doing things like that. Those are false positives is what they call it. Like Eva Mendes told the guy in the movie Hitch, I'm not interested does not mean try harder, man. When a woman tells you she's not interested, it doesn't mean try harder. When somebody tells you they're not buying your product, doesn't mean keep pushing with the exact same trial clothes over and over again because the shit is not working. Masterclass number 1211, vision versus delusion. The end of the story tells you which one it was. So you have to figure out where you're going to keep going and where you're going to walk away. Your instincts will help you with that. Your discernment will help you with that. And I've already given you master classes to help you do that. So generally, ladies, you can afford to stick with things for a little bit longer. And men, you can afford to stop trying so hard. Point number three. Sometimes you had the right approach, wrong outcome. George Jung, he was selling weed. He wanted to make money selling drugs. That was the right outcome for him. He was selling weed, wrong approach. His cellmate in jail introduced him to cocaine. Right approach, he started making a whole lot more money. Mace, same thing. He wanted to be a successful rapper. Right approach. No, right outcome, rather. The wrong approach was that he was rapping about drugs and violence and guns in the streets. It wasn't working. Nobody was paying Mace any mind. Nobody knew who Mace was. He got with Puff Daddy. Puff Daddy said, no, we're going to rap about shiny suits and cars and watches and girls and popping champagne and money. Right approach. He started making a whole lot of money. Everybody knows who Mace is. 50 Cent, same thing. The right outcome is he wanted to be a successful rapper. The wrong approach was he was trying to go the traditional route for him. It was the wrong approach for him. He got shot. Nobody wanted to deal with him in the music industry. So he landed on the right approach. Let me go the guerrilla way, make my own mixtapes, get my own name out there, build my own buzz to where I have the power and I'm not giving it to the record companies out there. And now everybody knows who 50 Cent is. Point number four. However, sometimes in life you have the right outcome, but you're approaching it the wrong way. So learn to alter your approaches in life. Meaning, not changing the desired result, but changing the way you go about achieving it. That's what I just talked about in point number four. So I think I turned myself around right there. Sometimes you have the right approach, wrong outcome. So George was selling, you get the point. I'm not even going to try to go back and try to figure out what I just said there. But if you listen to the whole episode, you got that point. Some basketball players want to play in the NBA and continue on point number four. It's not working. But what do they really want out of the NBA? They want to make money, have fans, get attention, and play basketball for a living. You can do that through YouTube now. You don't necessarily have to make the NBA. You can do it through the big three. You can do it through Instagram. You can do it through TikTok, I guess. You can be a trick shot artist. Ask someone if they'll do something. Ask life if it will give you something that you want, and life says no. Do you have alternate approaches to getting the yes, even though you already been given a no? If you don't get the outcome that you want, do not keep banging your head against the wall, trying the same thing over and over and over again. You know the whole saying about insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. How can we make this work? What would it take? What would make it make sense for you? These are all open-ended questions that I outlined in masterclass number 1436, keeping the power in your own hands. Open-ended questions asked to yourself, asked to other people, and asked of life. Keep possibilities open. Keep the possibility loops open. Once you allow the loop to be closed because you, not because of them, but because you ran out of material, then that's a problem. And if you're running out of material, I have no idea why, because what number masterclass is this? That makes no sense for you to run out of material. You need to be brushing up in the game group, making sure you're taking advantage of all these classes that you have access to. Work on your game. Dre all day.